Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Bajo.
I'm Junglist.
Coming up this week, we kick around FIFA 09 and talk to the lead developer, who just so happens to be a soccer-loving Aussie.
The Blob is a ball-like creature trying to restore colour to the world in the new Australian-made game for the Wii.
Pure is the latest all-terrain vehicle game to go next-gen.
And in their quest to stamp out the weak, the team from Double the Fizz challenge us to a Roffle Cup. But first, can you guess the game for this week?
Now, time for the news.
Pleased to be firing your laser.
Ensemble Studios, most famous for the Age of Empires games, is to be shut down after completing their current project, Halo Wars. Parent company Microsoft stated that while Ensemble's contribution to the games industry has been invaluable, the studio doesn't satisfy their fiscal strategy. Co-founder Bruce Shelley was shocked by the news, believing the studio's profitability made it immune to shutdown talk. Microsoft has stated as many employees will be moved within the company as possible, and they are committed to supporting Halo Wars post-release. Gamasutra is reporting that the studio had also been working on a Halo MMO, which may or may not have been cancelled before deciding to close the studio. By anyone's gauge, Ensemble helped shape RTS into what it is today, and will be missed. Floodgates were opened and chaos ensued recently with the launch of Warhammer Age of Reckoning, and Mythic CEO Mark Jacobs is already claiming the smoothest launch in MMO history. Jacobs says throughout the head start period and launch, there wasn't a single server crash, and that the new game has already 50% more subscribers than the maximum number of players in Mythic's other MMO, Dark Age of Camelot. It hasn't all been rosy though, with Mythic already banning 400 accounts for gold farming. Server queues have been long, prompting Mythic to clone servers to half the usage on each. EA has loosened the digital rights management system on Spore, now allowing up to 5 installations of the game. The move comes in the wake of massive consumer outcry over the DRM, the majority of which cites issues with the copyright protection software included with Spore called Securom, which has been known to cause malware issues akin to Starforce. President of the Entertainment Consumers Association, Hal Haplin, believes EA has used bait and switch tactics and that Spore's DRM has encouraged and legitimized piracy. It's expected that Spore will become the most pirated game in history, taking the crown from another EA title, The Sims 2.
Good game!
Here, the best of the best come together to compete in the Pure World Tour.
Apparently, the world can't get enough of all-terrain vehicle games. There's countless out there. ATV Off-Road Fury, Quad Power, ATV Untamed Unleashed, Over the Edge vs MX vs Street Fighter vs X-Men. And the developer responsible for creating a bunch of them is BlackRock Studios. These guys really, really like ATVs, and their latest game is called Pure.
A hybrid of realism and ridiculous, fused with leapfrogging, best describes Pure as you and 15 others race along a range of dusty, windy trails. By chaining tricks together and tweaking them, you gain valuable boost, which can be used to inch your way up the track or saved to unlock harder tricks up to the super moves.
And these are really fun to pull off, Jung, and also really rewarding when you manage to land them perfectly. There's 3 types of races. Race, Freestyle, which is all about the tricks, and Sprint, which is pretty much a race with a shorter track.
There's a few questions you ask yourself when you come across a jump in this game. Number 1, how steep is it? Number 2, have I got enough speed? Number 3, can I afford to spend my boost? Number 4, do I need to risk a jump at all? And 5, oh noes, I'm already in the air, I better start doing something cool. If you don't time your moves right, you'll soon get to know that feeling of a jump that isn't going too well.
Freestyle events replace a timer with a petrol limit, and this makes for a much more interesting race dynamic. I hate time trials, Jung, they're so last gen, and I'm glad they're not in this game. The best thing about Pure is that the tracks aren't in tiny Super Bowls, they're big, and either focused on lots and lots of ramps or tight corners, and when you pull off a high jump, you really get to see the full scope of the map.
Yeah, imagine the handling and the response of the ATVs is perfect, which just makes the whole game a joy to play. It seems that every race unlocks a new part for your buggy, and you can spend as little or as much time as you want tweaking your ride. I noticed that you didn't really have to use the brakes much though, Badger.
Brakes are for chumps, Jung, but you do have to make sure that you pump and land your vehicle at the right angles or prepare to become mayor of Tumbletown. It would have been nice though to have some more fantastical upgrades. A lot of the parts kind of look the same.
Is fantastical a word, Badger?
Probably, definitely, Jung.
There is a devious thrill in watching your guy smash into a rock, but I kind of wanted to see my guy live out his stack to the very end.
Me too, Jung, and my guy fell off a lot. On the other hand, though, except for the time when I got stuck in a tube, there's some really intelligent auto reset here if you hit a rock or end up facing the wrong way. Once you master the controls, you can blast through this game pretty quick, and it's a rare thing, Jung, but I actually found myself wanting this racer to be harder.
Yeah, Badge, and this does hurt replay value, but it also makes it more casual and less frustrating, so I'm not sure if I agree with you there. But once again, we got shafted on the split screen. There's no split screen in this game. What's with that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, there is online, but I'm starting to think that racing game developers are all Nigel no real life friends. I really miss the split screen, and there really is nothing quite like going up against someone who's in the same room as you.
Well, you know, I've heard it argued that as there's no money in it, no subscription fees for real-life friends, the devs are happy to leave it out. But it's good to see that the next MotorStorm will have split screen. Should we wrap it up?
You know, I've never really enjoyed an ATV game until now. Pure is just pure fun. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10. But it would be nice to have a racing game without Wolfmother's Woman on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I liked Pure a lot too, you know, especially blowing all that nitrous oxide on the last lap. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
As the most popular sport on the planet, football has been a perennial fixture on the release schedules of video game publishers for the past 30 years. Over that time, the football genre has utilized every increase in hardware performance to bring gamers closer to a realistic representation of the sport. From implementing the real rules to even featuring the correct number of players on the field, it took console hardware a long time to catch up to gamers' dreams of recreating every aspect of the beautiful game. The early home console football games were far from beautiful. Some, such as the Hockey Soccer dual cartridge for the Magnavox Odyssey, were ugly imitations of the sport. Little more than simple variations on Pong, with a handful of players acting as extra Pong bats and obstacles. Through the early and mid-80s, football games on the Atari 2600, Intellivision, and even the NES remained extremely simplistic. Matches were generally 3 or 4-a-side affairs with no fouls, corners, or penalties. In games like Konami's Hyper Soccer, players would swarm around the ball like a typical Saturday morning under-7s game at your local park. And as you can see, the Socceroos wore pink. Endorsements were all the rage even back then, and like today, were often used to mask some extremely average gameplay. Nonetheless, the biggest stars of English and European football were only too happy to have their terrible haircuts adorning the cover of game boxes everywhere, even if their in-game counterparts looked absolutely nothing like them. The first truly great football game was Kickoff, written by lone programmer Dino Dini and released in 1989 for the Amiga and Atari ST. The powerful new hardware allowed Kickoff to feature the full complement of 11 players per team, and also introduced a pitch radar that enabled you to keep track of the action off-screen. Shortly afterwards, the lads from UK outfit Sensible Software released Sensible Soccer, a fast-paced top-down football sim that emphasized a free-flowing passing game. The Kickoff versus Sensible Soccer wars predated the FIFA versus Pro Evo battle of today. Each game had its own devout fanatics, and the rivalry was as passionate as any real footballing local derby. The competition was fierce as both games traded goals with their even more popular sequels, but it was Sensible who eventually got their hands on the cup with Sensible World of Soccer in 1994. A massive accomplishment for its time, Sensible World of Soccer featured dozens of leagues and tournaments from around the world, including all the real players' names, and even boasted a management mode for those who wanted to tweak their tactics and formation to perfection. As the 3D revolution arrived in the mid-90s, developers experimented bringing a new perspective to football games with the likes of iPlay 3D Soccer and Libero Grande. Unsurprisingly, the other FPS, first-person soccer, didn't take off because players could never see enough of the pitch. Instead, the 3D revolution would eventually benefit the current powerhouses of the football game. EA had first ventured into football with FIFA International Soccer in 1993, but it wasn't until FIFA 96 that the series really began to perform. The PlayStation, Saturn, and PC versions saw FIFA transition into a fully 3D match engine, and EA Sports was able to polish the TV-style presentation that we now take for granted. FIFA 98 Road to the World Cup went even further, bringing the now ubiquitous licensed music to the table, including Blur's Song 2 as the main theme. In gameplay terms, FIFA 98 managed to coax its AI routines into implementing the notoriously tricky offside rule, previously a bane of many a football title, which explains why developers had often ignored it altogether. At the same time, Konami had launched two series of its own: International Superstar Soccer for the Super Nintendo and N64, and Winning 11 for the PlayStation. International Superstar Soccer was definitely the better game, with the N64's analog stick allowing finer control of your players' close ball skills, but the PlayStation's triumph in the console war meant that Winning 11 would prove the more popular and enduring title. Some games decided not to bother going head-to-head with FIFA and Pro Evo, and are all the better for it. Super Mario Strikers and Sega Soccer Slam eschew realism in favor of comical characters, ridiculous power-ups, and wildly exaggerated ball physics. They're a hell of a lot of fun, especially if you're after a multiplayer party game. Today though, football is all about FIFA and Pro Evo. The EA Sports "It's in the Game" mantra applies to FIFA's devotion to authenticity and the inclusion of every real player, their likenesses, official sponsors, real stadiums, even the correct brand of magic spray used by team doctors. Pro Evo may lack many of FIFA's official licenses, but its supporters are convinced it has always played a more realistic and challenging game of football. In recent times, FIFA has been making great strides, while the last couple of Pro Evos have struggled to come to grips with the new consoles, especially on the PS3 and 360. This year, the title is wide open, but it's clear that the quality of football being played has never been higher.
Good game.
So let's bring soccer gameage right up to date with the latest FIFA 09, and this time they're concentrating more on the physical side of the game. As with most annual EA Sports offerings, there's some graphical improvements, a wicked new soundtrack, and updated gameplay. Teammates are just a little bit smarter. The auto-switching of players is a little less frustrating. And across the board, your shots, crosses, and passes will depend more on your personal skill than the AI.
Players will now physically contest the ball, and this takes into account strength and weight of each player. A quick flick in the right direction can actually push an opponent off the ball.
This is also the first soccer game to have a 10v10 online mode with clan support. This means everyone in the game is a real player except for the goalies.
And that's not the only online addition. Andrew Wilson is the executive producer on FIFA, and he's also an Aussie. We asked him how the new live season technology is going to work.
Our plan right now is that every single gamer will get one league for free. So if you're an English Premier League fan, you'll log in the first, you'll enter a code, and you will get that for the entire season. And our belief is that will capture the majority of people who want to get this live season data content into their game. Then, of course, if you want to go and buy additional leagues from the French League or the Bundesliga, you can absolutely do that. And we're still finalising what the cost of those things will be.
So EA is letting you choose one league for free, and then any additional data is going to cost you. If you cancel your subscription, it'll actually revert back to the default data, and this seemed a little bit strange to me, Jung. I mean, you've downloaded this, it's your downloadable content. It's yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people might want their data to revert, you know? Like if Ronaldinho gets traded away from my team, I'll be clawing at the Ethernet cable, you know? But yeah, I mean, once you've paid for the content, you should be given a choice.
As for core gameplay, it seems to account for players' mistakes more. Players will mess up, kick a ball too far and they'll lose it. They'll even stay on the ground or hobble out of bounds if they're injured. And it makes it more realistic, but the question has to be asked, do you want these amateur mistakes in a game?
The answer is yes, because what matters is the more you know the controls and the smoother you queue up your commands, the less you'll see your players blunder. Team Italy is still lacking a dive button, but overall there's very little random going on, and most of it has to do with your own dexterity.
An obvious example of this is the crosses. In FIFA 08, you just push the cross button and have a ball delivered to you with a little bow on top as a nice little package. But in FIFA 09, you have to gauge it and aim it, and it means you have more control over the ball, but it also means you'll make more mistakes.
Out of the 3 major upgrades, 2 are online-based. But just as I thought offline punters were being neglected, the computer this time around is actually a lot more fun to play against, whereas before, I wouldn't have even bothered with single player. It's genuinely improved across the board. I'm giving it 8.5 Schwarzer chickens.
I'm the first to admit that I'm a sports noob, and not having a tutorial really stops me getting to that expert level that I kind of want to get to. Having said that though, it's definitely one of the most emotional games there is. Despite a G rating, I'm giving it 7.5 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Tonight on After the Game, we have a rare satellite interview with Maury Geldman, one-time potential game hero. Maury, tell us what it's like to be embraced by the bosom of fame and fortune, only to be thrust out like the fabled suckling pig of adversity.
Gretchen, I don't know, sponge-loving goober of love.
Maury?
Cod pieces. Fishwife, flat drawstrings.
We're just working out some technical difficulties, Richard. Just stand by. Well, if the satellite's down, why don't we roll that promo for the Save the Heroes Foundation album? Hit it. I said hit. Right, I'm going to take a look at some late-breaking news. Oh, this takes forever. What else has he done, this Maury Geldman?
That's basically how the game went, and I just would have been this guy who tried to save the princess.
Maury, can you hear me? Maury! Maury, can you hear me?
Besnickety.
What's the connection on this satellite? Is it a cup and string? That's it, isn't it? Might as well be trying to use the Russian interpreter.
Roll up the wazoo!
Bloody hell, I've got 3 appointments this morning. If you can't get your 2 coconuts to work, I'm leaving.
Risk it.
Oh, sod this, I'm wrapping it, then I'm driving there myself. You, on me in 3, 2, 1. While we weren't able to coherently interview Maury, time marches on and bills keep arriving for him and other also-rans you've never heard of. Please give generously, don't delay.
Screw was up my wazoo! Hello, Wretched. Is anybody there? Anybody want to hear more about my computer game? I was friends with Michael Jackson.
Good game.
And now onto balls of another kind, Jung. The Blob is all about colour, style and mood, and not letting the man get you down. And about putting in as many puns about ink as possible.
Radia is being invaded by the color-hating fascist regime known as the Inked Corporation, led by Comrade Black. These nasty types are intent on removing all the color and joy from the world and enslaving the local Radians by turning them into mindless slave Gradians.
You play as Blob, who's a blob. He's a spongy, inky hero with a can-do attitude and the only one with the blobs to take on the baddies, free the Radians, and restore the world to its former colourful glory.
Using the nunchuck, you can use the joystick to do all of your moving around. A shake of the Wiimote will let you jump, and the only other button you'll use is the Z button to target onto some enemies and bits of levels. And in classic platforming style, the only way you can kill an enemy is by jumping on his head.
Likewise, the core gameplay is very simple. You can turn Blob a certain colour by running into an ink bot, and then paint the world by rubbing against buildings and objects, and using some basic platforming skills to get to those hard-to-reach places.
There's decent enough level design here that gets a lot more complex as you progress, with different challenges such as races from A to B, and painting every building a different color within a certain area. There's enough variety here for you to not feel like you're just painting buildings.
There are plenty of enemy types and traps, from hot plates that kill you on contact to sticky ink which you need to wash off if you touch it, and it's these little obstacles and challenges that keep the whole experience engaging.
The most complex part of the game comes with mixing colors. Since there are only 3 ink bots in the game, blue, yellow, and red, you'll need to brush up on your color mixing skills. If you want green, you'll need a blue and yellow ink bot. If you want brown, you'll need all 3. It adds a simple layer of puzzle solving and again, helps to keep things from getting tiresome.
Progress is as simple as getting enough points to unlock gates, and this is done by completing challenges or painting the world. There's 10 levels for you to blob through, and each of these has 2 bonus challenges as well, so there is a sizable amount of the world to paint.
But while the gameplay is certainly simple fun, the game really shines because of its personality. The colors are vibrant, and the characters, even the evil ones, are adorable. The graphics are great for the Wii with crisp character models, smooth animation, and a nice load of effects such as the inky trail you leave behind wherever you go. And the pre-rendered cutscenes look fantastic and are full of tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah, it's certainly an eye-catcher, but for me it was the sound design that got me hooked, with each colour creating a different sound as you paint. My personal favourite was the jazz scat singing as you paint the town red.
But this simple, less is more gameplay style certainly isn't for everyone. I mean, the game is obviously targeted at a younger audience, but I'm sure any age can enjoy it because of its charms, or like me, you might just not go for this sort of quirky gameplay style.
At the end of the day, Blue Tongue have created a charming, unique game that's perfect for the Wii. Your wrist gets a bit sore from the endless amount of flicking, but I liked it, Jung. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, I don't think I liked it as much as that. The whole painting mechanic didn't really interest me that much, but the dynamic music that changes as you paint, I thought that was really well done. It's impossible to deny the game's charms once you play it. It's a great one for kids. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
It's Roffle Cup time again, and this time we're lucky enough to have with us the star of ABC's Double the Fist, Steve Fox.
Fist fans across the globe are tackling weakness head-on.
Steve, welcome to Good Game. Now, you've moved into a second series of the show. You must be excited. Yeah, well, we sure are, you know. And I imagine you must be quite the gamer too, in a show that's about challenges and, you know, in effect, it's kind of like a game show. Is that true?
No, it's not.
As you probably know, gamers have gaming names, badges, Junglist. What's yours?
Steve Fox.
Oh, kind of like Tekken 4, 5, and 6, and Son of Alan Williams.
Yeah, what's it like training with martial law and Paul Phoenix?
Ever wonder where you get that mysterious scar on your arm from, or who your father is?
Lol.
Ruffle.
Loller skates.
Ruffle Copter. Oh, what a noob.
Anyway, Steve, what do you have planned for us today?
All right, Jeremy. Today I've got a little game I like to call Reality 2008.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that. It kind of sounds like a Will Wright game, you know, some emerging gameplay and user-generated
A
content.
PC art game, perhaps, by Rod Humble with Bloom effects?
All right, boys. Why don't we all just be quiet for a second? You two wait outside, and I'll explain to the people at home what the game's about.
I would kind of like to know what it's about, you know. So...
Get out. Get out! Now, the problem with computer games is that they're played out by cute, cuddly animals or super invincible soldiers. And the people at home are doing nothing more than this. That's why I've invented something I like to call Reality 2008. Okay, challenge 1. Your task is to perform meaningless, repetitive activity at your desk until you die. Of course, this could take more than 50 years, so to make this round more exciting, the passage of time will be played by some guy with an axe. Nice one, Jeremy. You survived the office trap, which means you can spend the rest of your life playing computer games at home. Unless, of course, you don't survive round 2. Round 2 is a puzzle game. Your challenge is to solve this question. Why won't the gas barbecue light? That's right, the barbecue won't light because the gas cylinder has been used to booby-trap the house. Round 2 goes to Jeremy. Round 3 is a trivia challenge. First on the buzzer wins. Which Australian soap star was recently found with $500,000 of heroin in her... That's right. Quiz shows are for weak whining leeches, and anyone who enters them must be punished. If you run a game show and would like to hire out my quiz ray, contact me at this address. Well, congratulations, Jeremy. You've won the Roffle Cup. Now take that trophy and put it in your house, and remember, no one's impressed. And as for you, you weak, gullible idiot, everyone thinks that you're a disgusting waste of humanity, and you're going to be replaced by a robot.
What?
And not even a good one, a rubbish one made out of cardboard.
You can't do that, seriously. You're just a guest. So gamers, did you guess the game for this week?
It was Mario Paint. Released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1992, it came with this, the Nintendo Mouse. You could create your own pictures or fill in existing outlines, kind of like a coloring book.
You could even make your drawings move to music made in the music generator. That's all for this week, John.
Next week, we go back in time to the 80s, when arcades were in their heyday and many Australians bought their first console.
We look at the events that were shaping the world's thinking and chart the history of the decade from a gamer's perspective, including a look at some of the very best and the very worst games of the era.
And we'll get a visit from avid 80s gamer, the Chasers' Andrew Hansen.
Till next time, gamers, Bajo out.
Junglist out.